The Westmoreland Museum of American Art presents 4th grader Jeremy Hoyce, 6th grader Christina Hapanowitz, and painter Barry Shields in a story about art and history.
Maybe that would be a good spot.
Over there is a good idea, yeah.
Barry, how did you decide to paint this scene?
I'm always looking for things to paint. In this case, I think it was the location that attracted me. Maybe it'll work and maybe it won't.
What do you mean work?
Well, I'm trying to capture something, a mood, beauty, drama, a sense of time and place.
A sense of time and place?
Sure, maybe in 100 years, someone will look at my paintings and get a feel for what it was like to live in Western Pennsylvania in the 21st century.
Like history?
It's history, but don't forget, it's art too.
So it's art and history.
It's a little of both. Men and women have been creating art in Western Pennsylvania from the time that they arrived, and we can learn a lot about who they were and how they lived and what they achieved by looking at their art.
Okay, Barry. If we wanted to look for the history of Western Pennsylvania and its art, where would we start?
That's easy. I'd go to scalp level.
Scalp level?
Right. Go to scalp level, Pennsylvania, and look for the big picture.
The big picture?
Sure. It's like a puzzle. Put the pieces together and you'll understand what I mean.
Do we have to?
Come on, Jeremy, we can do it.
Well, if you say so. See you later, Barry. Are you sure it's there in Scalp Level, Pennsylvania? Christina, I don't like this.
Hold on, we're almost there.
Where? I could be home with my video game.
Well, here we are. Hey, what are you doing?
I'm looking for the big picture. Stop. Maybe it's behind this stump.
Don't you get it? This is where it happened.
Oh yeah, I bet you're going to tell me this is where the video game was invented.
No. This is one of the places where the scalp level artists worked.
Scalp level artist?
Barry told me about a group of painters. These guys.
They look like a bunch of real cool guys to me.
They were called the Scalp Level Group because they painted near a town by that name, just south of Johnstown. And that's where we are now.
What did they want to come here for anyway?
They came here to get away from the city, to experience the country, to paint the mountains and streams.
What does that have to do with the big picture?
They painted some of the pieces to the puzzle that Barry was talking about. Look at this.
I bet this is one of theirs.
Now you're getting it. Notice anything else?
Well, there's kind of a road in the woods.
And what do you see over there?
Kind of a road in the woods?
Precisely. We're standing close to where that picture was painted over 100 years ago.
Are you sure this is the place? Things sure have changed.
It might be, but it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't? Now I'm confused.
Look for the big picture, Jeremy.
Things are getting pretty weird here. See ya.
No, wait. These paintings show what Western Pennsylvania was like when it was the frontier. It's
the big picture.
Thank you, Barry. That counts.
Oh, the big picture. I'm supposed to say the primitive road with the wagon ruts and think about the time when our ancestors first moved into the wilderness, cleared the land, and created a subsistence farming economy.
Where did you learn that?
The History Channel.
These paintings give us a feel for what it was like 100 years ago. They give us the big picture. Very few people, mostly farmers.
Subsistence farmers?
Right, subsistence farmers, scattered over a big area. Hey, what is subsistence farming anyway?
I'm glad you asked. Look at this painting. Here's a farm that's pretty much self-sufficient. They grow or make everything they need. There were no stores to go to, no money.
No money?
Right. If you needed something that you couldn't produce yourself, you traded for it. It's called bartering.
I bet they were very careful with what they had.
Absolutely. They used everything and used it again.
You mean like in recycling?
Right. Recycling is an old concept that we've brought back.
But there's something you missed.
No way.
What do you see in this painting?
Okay. I see a river, some mountains, a log house, and some people. That kind of stuff.
Well, you're right, but there's more to it than that. These paintings show the beginnings of something. They show transportation, natural resources, and people. The three things you need to create a modern society. What do you see in this painting?
Whoa! Those guys out there are skinny dipping.
Hey, where'd you go? What are you doing up there?
I just wanted to get into the picture. This place kind of grows on you.
Wow, that's what happened to the Scout level painters. They liked the wilderness around Scout level so much that they kept coming back year after year, creating a record of change.
You're right. If you look closely, you can see the change in this painting.
What do you mean?
If you zoom way in, you'll see the artist has captured an early steamboat on the river.
Wow. Okay, what do you see in this painting?
Another house in the wilderness?
Look more closely.
Well, maybe it's not a house. Oh, I see. It's a sawmill.
Right, it's the beginnings of specialization. It's the next step after subsistence farming.
And I bet this is where money becomes more important?
Yes. Money becomes important because you need to pay specialists like teachers, blacksmiths, and lawyers to provide important services to your community. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
What you mean?
You remember that the Scout level painters were professional artists who wanted to capture this magnificent landscape before it's spoiled.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't the only ones making art. As the community developed, ordinary people began decorating everyday objects, kind of turning them into art, a different kind of art.
Give me an example.
For that, we have to go to the museum. This is it, the Westmoreland Museum of American Art.
That's a really big picture.
Funny, Jeremy. Look at this. It's called a fractor. It's a hand-painted birth certificate. It's just one example of the kind of art produced by non-professional artists in Western Pennsylvania. And do you know what a bride's box is?
I don't think I should. Not yet anyways.
It's a fancy box that a girl would keep her special things in that she was going to bring with her when she got married. It might have been made by her father or another family member.
You'd never catch me making one of those. I wouldn't know where to start.
Bet you'd have even more trouble with that cupboard over there. And just imagine making your own dishes.
I guess things have changed.
Right. Quilting, sewing, woodworking. For the most part, these have become hobbies, not ways to make a living. And it's all because of a big change that happened late in the 19th century. Can you guess what it was?
Aw, the invention of the video game.
Not as far off as you might think. Video games are part of our time, the information age. I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, I know about that. It's where machines, really big machines, start to do some of the work.
History Channel?
No. My grandfather worked in the steel mills, and my great-grandfather worked in the coal mines. My dad told me about it.
That's something you share with a lot of people in Western Pennsylvania.
What?
In the 19th century, people came to our region. I mean millions of people, because they could get jobs in the coal and steel industries. The Industrial Revolution was the time in history when Western Pennsylvania became a world-class producer of steel and related products. This is what Pittsburgh looked like in 1850.
I'm not impressed.
Okay, how about this?
Now that's scary. It looks like the whole city's on fire.
In just 50 years, Pittsburgh went from this to this. Steel capital of not just America, but of the world.
How did it happen?
Well, we had the basics. We had rivers for transportation, and the basic ingredients for steel. The recipe for making steel is 3 parts iron ore, plus 2 parts limestone, and 1 part coke. The coke comes from coal, and there is a lot of coal in western Pennsylvania. Coal was so important that people used to call it black diamonds.
And a lot of people worked in the coal mines.
Right.
And where did all the people come from?
That's a story in itself. They were called immigrants. At first, they came from England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and then from Germany and France. But a funny thing happened.
What?
The steel business got so big that they had to start advertising for people. That's when the second wave came from countries like Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland, even Italy. They came by the millions.
Were they all from other countries?
No, some came from other parts of the United States. Thousands of African Americans moved here from the South right after the Civil War.
Did they like it when they got here?
It was tough, but it was better than in the old country. Besides, they brought something very important with them.
What was that?
Their culture.
What do you mean their culture?
See the church in the background? Western Pennsylvania has hundreds of churches that were built by the immigrants to help preserve their culture.
You mean church is culture?
Sometimes, culture is a way of life shared by a group of people. It can be what they believe in, or things like their language, or their art.
I bet that's part of the big picture, because there are a lot of different cultures in Western Pennsylvania.
Right. Western Pennsylvania is the classic American mosaic. And you know what?
What?
Our region is richer for it. Every time I look at these paintings, I see people who are trying to work hard to make a better life for themselves and their children.
That's it. That's what's been bothering me.
What now, Jeremy?
I haven't seen any pictures with kids in school.
Well, there's a good reason for that. Look at that photograph.
Bet he didn't spend much time in school.
You're right about that. This was the time when people, even kids, were sent into the mills and mines to work 12 hours a day. The youngest were used for picking slate out of the coal as it came out of the mine.
12 hours a day?
It was an incredible process that created 2 things. First, Pittsburgh became the greatest steel production complex the world had ever seen. Western Pennsylvania made the steel that built America and helped win World War I. We made the steel for the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, and the steel that not only helped win World War II, but helped rebuild Europe after the war.
I guess we can be proud of that.
Yes, we can. But it took a terrible toll on the region.
I know what you mean. Pittsburgh became one of the most polluted cities on Earth. I've heard my grandparents talk about the smoke. I guess it was pretty bad.
Well, we can also be proud of what happened next.
You mean the cleanup?
Right. At the end of World War II, it looked like Pittsburgh was finished. The air was so dirty that they had to have the streetlights on in the middle of the day. But everybody got together and worked hard to clean things up.
And a lot of other cities looked to Pittsburgh as an example of how to save a polluted city.
Wow. Look how beautiful everything is.
Wow. Well, there's a view for you. Look
There's
how
a
far you
train.
can see.
Where did all the steel mills go?
For the most part, they're gone. It's a complex issue, but a lot of other countries have gotten into the steel business.
You mean there's nothing left?
There's still a steel industry in western Pennsylvania, but it's much smaller than it used to be.
They're close to the past, though, even in downtown Pittsburgh. Remember this painting?
Yeah.
It shows the Wabash Railroad Bridge. Now look at the city. See anything familiar?
No.
Those giant bridge supports are all that remains of the Wabash Railroad Bridge.
I always wondered what those were. One last question?
Sure.
Now that the steel is gone, what does everybody do?
Pittsburgh has become a center for other things: education, medicine, robots, computers, the things of the 21st century. And that's another piece of the story.
So you mean that today's artists are capturing tomorrow's history?
I think you're catching on, Jeremy.